Some people get their toenails removed on purpose, and this is usually done as a last resort before running a marathon. You see, during long distance running, your toenails repeatedly hit the front of your shoe, and this is painful and can make your nails blacken, which could cause them to eventually fall off. So some extreme runners choose to just remove them before the race to prevent this altogether. Some corsets used to be squeezed. So tight back in the 19th century that some women actually had their internal organs shifted around, and this would sometimes cause them severe digestive issues. Some women also experienced breathing problems and would faint frequently. Wearing a tight corset from a young age often caused deformities in the rib cage, making them narrow and compressed as they aged. Corsets used to be squeezed so tight back in the 19th century that some women actually had their internal organs shifted around, and this would sometimes cause them severe digestive issues. Some women also experienced breathing problems and would faint frequently. When the soldier's foot would break through a hidden bamboo slat and into a hole if they stepped onto a cartridge strap. Inside, a bullet was positioned on top of a nail that was fastened to a wooden board. And when the soldier's foot hit this shell, it pushed the nail into the board. A doctor would remove the hardened clump of hair directly from the animal. And if you were poisoned, they'd have you swallow it. These hairball stones were believed to have magical properties back in the Middle Ages, which obviously wasn't true. But they were covered in holes, and allegedly, they'd sometimes actually absorb the toxins in the stomach, preventing the poison from reaching the bloodstream. A doctor would remove the hardened clump of hair directly from the animal, and if you were poisoned, they'd have you swallow it. These hairball stones were believed to have magical properties back in the Middle Ages, which obviously wasn't true, but they were covered in holes, and allegedly, they'd sometimes actually absorb the toxins in the stomach, preventing the poison from reaching the bloodstream. A doctor would remove the hardened clump of hair directly from the animal, and if you were poisoned, they'd have you swallow it. These hairball stones were believed to have magical properties back in the Middle Ages, which obviously wasn't true, but they were covered in holes, and allegedly, they'd sometimes actually absorb the toxins in the stomach, preventing the poison from reaching the bloodstream. A doctor would remove the hardened clump of hair directly from the animal, and if you were poisoned, they'd have you swallow it. These hairball stones were believed to have magical properties back in the Middle Ages, which obviously wasn't true, but they were covered in holes, and allegedly, they'd sometimes actually absorb the toxins in the stomach, preventing the poison from reaching the bloodstream. If the ice starts to crack, you should immediately dead bodies would sometimes be pushed further down into the ground to make room for more dead bodies. This would happen in big cities in the 18th century when graveyards were overcrowded and couldn't expand. And in extreme cases, up to 12 coffins would be stacked on top of each other in the same graveyard. Now, the bodies on top weren't buried deep enough would sometimes poke through the ground. Buried bodies would settle. A surgeon can insert this ring of beads around your esophagus to stop acid reflux. You see, acid reflux happens when stomach acid travels back up your throat, and this irritates the tissues, causing them to become inflamed. To fix it, a surgeon can place this ring of beads around the lower part of the esophagus. The beads will still allow food to pass through, but they're just strong enough to stop the acid. A surgeon can insert a string of beads around your esophagus to stop acid reflux. You see, acid reflux happens when stomach acid travels back up your throat, and this irritates the tissues, causing them to inflame. To fix it, a surgeon can place this ring of beads around the lower part of the esophagus. The beads will start to allow food to pass through, just strong enough to stop the acid. A surgeon can insert this ring of beads around your esophagus to stop acid reflux. You see, acid reflux happens when stomach acid travels back up your throat, and this irritates the tissues, causing them to become inflamed. To fix it, a surgeon can place this ring of beads around the lower part of the esophagus. This is an F-Zero tornado, and it could knock over your trash can and possibly damage some of your gutters. Now, an F1 tornado can damage a garage and peel some shingles off your roof. F2 tornadoes can lift a car into the air and uproot a large tree in your yard. An F3 tornado is so extreme that it can remove the entire top story of your house. And an F4 or F5 tornado is so powerful it can completely reduce an entire house into rubble and devastate pretty much anything. This is $60,000. Let's pretend this equals Jeff Bezos' net worth of $186 billion. This is what Oprah's net worth would look like, $850. Gary Vee would have a whopping $50. Mr. Beast's pocket change coming in at around $18. A millionaire would have about 33 cents. And the average net worth of a 35-year-old would be one single penny. This is Buc-ee's. It's the largest gas station in the world. It was started back in the 80s by a guy named Beaver. I kid you not. He started this gas station south of Houston. It was kind of just small and dinky, kind of just looked like any other gas station. He teamed up with a business partner, and together they opened about 20 of these little gas stations near Houston until 2003, when they decided that they wanted to shake things up a little bit. They opened a store in Wheeling, Texas, which is next to San Antonio. This gas station, around this time, they also started selling T-shirts and Buc-ee's merch and their famous beaver nuggets. And you could argue to say that around this time is when Buc-ee's cult following started to cultivate. After 2003, they started opening many more of these big 50,000 square foot stores with hundreds of gas pumps. Eventually, they opened up in Alabama, and Florida, and Georgia, and there's 40 plus stores across the nation. This is Buc-ee's. It's the largest gas station in the world. Started back, the company opened their first store outside of Texas in Alabama.
Lucy was born trapped on a rope. She couldn't keep her balance. Lucy could fall off the rope at any moment. Just then, a sparrow flew over. The sparrow tried to pull Lucy forward. Gradually, Lucy was able to walk on the rope. As time went by, Lucy reached elementary school age. Every time she went to school, she would take Sparrow with her. A few more years passed. Lucy lost her childishness. She put on high heels. She became a young woman. Lucy met the man of her dreams. When Sparrow saw the man holding Lucy's hand, Sparrow stopped him in his tracks because Sparrow was afraid Lucy would get hurt. The man took out a small toy to play with Sparrow. It wasn't long before the two of them got married. But then the war broke out. Her boyfriend was forced to join the army. Lucy tried to follow him, but the road was covered with nails. Sparrows flew onto the nails. It tried desperately to keep the nails down. Lucy didn't know how long she had been walking. A letter came from the battlefield. Lucy opened the letter excitedly. She didn't expect to hear about her boyfriend's death. Lucy's hopes were dashed. She walked on in a daze. I don't know how many years passed. The war was finally over. Lucy became an old woman, and the rope came to an end. Lucy was born trapped on a rope.
This cute hamster suddenly falls apart and gets teleported to the soul transfer facility. He dreams of being reborn as a peacock, but since the machine is random, he becomes a goldfish instead. He starts looking for ways to return to the facility even though it's against the rules. Suddenly, he gets thrown out of the fishbowl and lands on a cheese grater. He then slides around on a piece of bread before getting cooked and sent back to the facility. He immediately goes to the machine to try becoming a peacock again. Unfortunately, he turns into a mosquito but doesn't bother anyone. Instead, he flies into a truck and returns right back. He forgets he's not allowed to do this but somehow gets lucky and becomes a peacock. Suddenly, a A Discord admin shows up and says he is banned from coming there. The admin then puts the place on lockdown, but the hamster steals someone's pod and uses the last bit of power to finally become a peacock. He can't believe it and spreads his wings to start flying. At that moment, he gets struck by lightning and disintegrates again. This cute hamster.
This world got infected with deadly balloons.
Hello and welcome to Memo Anime Recaps. Do not forget to like and subscribe. The boy who also turns out to be the protagonist is known as Takatsuki Tazuna, and he is seen in his classroom. His classmate, who is also the president of the student council, shows up. Her name is Lily, but Tazuna is used to calling her by her title and name. Tazuna is a boy who likes to play around with machines, and he has a knack for fixing them. He just finished fixing Lily's brother's music player, and he hands it over to her. She thanks him for this and tests it out to find out that it is working perfectly. Lily is someone who plays around with tarot cards, and she uses one of these to check out what will happen to Tazuna, because he has been focused on fixing the music player and has forgotten to eat. The card reads to her that an unexpected event will happen to Tazuna, but she quickly takes the card away without paying much attention to it. Lily suggests that she buy the guy a slice of cake, but he refuses the offer. He lets it known that he has something to do at the university later in the day. He won't have the time to he says. The professor he will be meeting at the school is mocking him. In a world of magic, the powers and future of a mage are predetermined at birth through so-called arts, 4 symbols that categorize a human's aptitude for magic. Lamenting the fact that his mark was considered ill-suited for combat and only useful for magic augmentation, an incredibly skilled sage decided to reincarnate thousands of years in the future. The hooded figure fights a giant monster and trounced it. He stares at his hand with the symbol and says the symbol is
Abe walks up to congratulate the girl. That's when Horace notices a reflection of the camera. Moreover, people just actually barrel. They didn't check back. However, he had rolled into an panel. Which made him Said she disliked lazy slackers like him. Moreover, finally gets a good look at her and notices Euphoria's striking resemblance to the girl in his dream and it was she was the frog. That was just thing he had missed it. But he told her he was mistaken because his name was Girl, not Frog. The girl insisted that he was her big brother Froggen because he had called her by her former name Thrush. But he told her that could not remember much of his past, but the name simply wasn't up in his past. He then suggested that she had better begin. But a noise caught their attention and saw a girl lying on the floor. Morrow tried to see if she was alive, but she opened her eyes and called him Jimsor, then kissed him. This made the red-haired girl jealous, and she pulled them apart. She called the girl. The girl simply stated that she had mistaken him for someone else, since she was half asleep. The red-haired girl asked if she had a habit of kissing the wrong person every time she was half asleep, but the girl didn't seem bothered about what she'd said. The red-haired girl complained that she had stolen her chance to kiss Morrow in his life. When Morrow tried to calm the situation, the kiss stayed fast and he thought of her lips and Morrow became uncomfortable, but told her that she was behaving like a cheap and easy girl, that she even knew each other. And knowing that they had completely ignored her, the red-haired girl said that Morrow was but was still being a womanized. Later on in a conversation, she
that the school doesn't allow it. They sit around at the arena and gather around their instructor, who starts a fight by telling them about the two different types of saviors. Shuriken, who use light arts, and Kuroma, who use dark arts. He informs them that they would begin their training by learning how to use the light arts, and shows them an example by smoking his granite, which covers his whole body. The students were amazed by this and asked what it was, so he explained that he had manifested his prana, which was the power source of Rhino. He tells them that since they each had memories of their past life, they simply had to instinctively draw out their prana from there. Excited, they all gave it a try, but ended up struggling until Satsuki did hers with ease. Moroha was struggling with manifesting his prana. Satsuki approached him and excitedly asked if he had seen her, but before he could respond, they heard a group of students discussing. One of the boys said he wished a metaphysical would appear and go on a rampage, so they could be sent to find it. Satsuki confronted them, saying they were a disgrace to saviors to Jen. One of the boys asked what right she had to speak to them in that way, and she said if they actually had functioning brains, they wouldn't have to ask such a stupid question. They eventually got into an argument, with each one of them throwing insults at the other, but Jen suddenly got pissed at something she'd said and manifested his prana. The teacher tried to stop them from fighting, but he said it would just be a practice match between two students. Before the match started, he pulled on his tag and it turned into a two-sided axe. He pulled on hers and it turned into a sword. Moroha was impressed by this, and Shizuno explained that if you channel the prana into the tags, they transformed into the weapons they had used in their past life. Amazed by this, he watched on, but was also worried about Satsuki. Satsuki kept attacking, but Jen easily dodged and taunted her for not being able to land a hit on him. He charged at him when he swung his axe at her, but she dodged out of the way, catching him off guard. Seeing the opening, she tried to attack him again, but he somehow disarmed her and called her a weakling. And as she tried to go pick up her sword, he used his axe to slash her back. Fortunately, he had only cut her clothes, and as she sat holding herself in shame, he laughed and mocked her, but Moroha came and placed his jacket on her, completely covering her exposed back. The teacher came up to them and told Jen to stop with his taunting, so Jen apologized but said Satsuki was a weakling who couldn't defend herself. After hearing his words, she got up and ran out of the stage. In a cafe somewhere in the town, Moroha tried to cheer up a depressed Satsuki, but his words didn't have any effect on her, so he listened as she spoke of her childhood. She reveals that because her town was always attacked by metaphysicals, she had moved around a lot, which was why she didn't know how to make friends. But because she had Suraj's memories and got to see Fraga in her dreams, she didn't really feel lonely. The test soon revealed she was a savior, and this made her happy, because she knew she would have the opportunity to reunite with Fraga. She admitted that saving the world and upholding justice did not matter to her as much as proving herself before him was. But she had been humiliated after picking a fight when she lost. She begged him to scold her for her mistake, just as he had done in the past, but Moroha said nothing. Just then, Shizuno, who they hadn't even noticed, was sitting beside Satsuki, volunteered to do the scolding. The surprised Satsuki accused Moroha of inviting her, but he immediately denied it. Shizuno didn't seem bothered by her outburst, and sat eating her fries happily. But when Moroha joined her, Satsuki lost her cool and demanded she leave. Shizuno completely ignored her and walked up to Moroha, placing his face in her massive claws, and then asked if her behavior was that of a loose woman, but he was unable to respond. Satsuki was so jealous that she called them all sorts of names. She asked if Shizuno wasn't ashamed of using her oversized plots to seduce an innocent boy, but Shizuno claimed that underage lollies like her didn't have the right to speak to her. Satsuki refused to back down, so eventually Shizuno apologized and let go of Moroha, and immediately Satsuki grabbed him and put his face on her chest. She asked how he felt, and he said it was like he was being dragged through a bed of tiny pebbles, which made her run off crying as across the floor. And that was when Shizuno and Satsuki got to the stadium. Jen noticed her and said he would finish what he had started with her when he had taken care of her. Enraged by his words, Moroha attacked him again, but it was no use since he wasn't strong enough. As they watched them fight, Satsuki lost hope that Moroha would win, but Shizuno told her that Satsuki's final was armor. She owed it to him to watch till the end. Moroha's sword soon flew out of his hand, so he ran to pick it, but Jen stepped on his hand. Lying helpless on the floor, he suddenly remembered his past life where Suraj told him that she believed in him because he was the guardian of the sword, the ultimate sword. The present Satsuki repeated the same words and said she would kiss him if he won, and that seemed to trigger him, and he suddenly got up and channeled his prana into his hand. Jen was surprised by his sudden transformation and tried to fight back, but Moroha had gained the upper hand. He made use of celerity, which also surprised Jen, who had used 3 years to master the skill. Enraged that the cannon fodder weakling, who had just awakened his prana, was about to best him, he tried to strike, but Moroha stopped his axe with his sword and Jen was then knocked out by the energy Moral released, and overwhelmed by the amount of granite, he just used Moral lost consciousness. But before he could hit the ground, Satsuki caught it. Meanwhile, the principal who had walked in during the fight referred to Kuroha as the ancient dragon. A sleeping Kuroha was woken by a kiss, but when he opened his eyes, he was met with the unfamiliar face of a young blonde girl who got off him and went to stand beside the principal, who informed him that the girl had used her mouth to send magic into his body to replace the prana he lost. When he asked if she had been the one who kissed him, she turned tension red and hid behind the principal. The sound drew his attention to the curtain, and when the principal pulled it open, he saw Satsuki gag inside. So the principal explained that she had tried to take advantage of him while he slept, so she put her on timeout. After sitting by his side, she told him that she had watched him and knew he was an ancient dragon. The airhead was honest and baffled. She revealed that the Japanese branch of the Order of White Knights referred to ancient dragons as the oldest fallen hero. And going further, she explained that all saviors were reincarnations of life, but it was possible that some saviors had been reborn again, and they had two past lives. Moral said he could barely remember his life as a warrior, and didn't sound happy about having to remember the life. The principal mentioned that had used a level 3 dark light as he swung his sword, which was pointed out. She then stood up to leave. Told him that she could see that his riz would give him a lot of women problems, so he should be careful. After they left, he untied Satsuki, and she immediately hugged him, saying she was happy he remembered everything. But Moral had tried to let her know that he hadn't, but she was too busy trying to kiss him, since she had promised him earlier. Just then Shizuno arrived, and pulled the scene before her nicer. Ticked off by her presence, Satsuki complained that she had an act of ruining her special moments with Moral, and said that she was just about to fulfill her lifelong dream of kissing Moral. Shizuno just walked past her and kissed Moral, making Satsuki call her a conniving man stealing from her. After she pushed her away, abruptly, the little girl watched their exchange and felt bad for Moral, who was already having a relationship with her. She was also very curious. Another day in the classroom, Satsuki asked Moral to exchange numbers with her and celebrated gaining her third contest. But Shizuno, who stood behind her, congratulated her for leveling up from being a complete loner to a loser with just one friend.